Hi everyone, welcome to Mississippi State University Extension's presentation on developing food product labels. Today we'll be focusing on Mississippi cottage food labeling. In the state of Mississippi, there are several food business options. These can include a cottage food operation, a retail exempt operation, which would be inspected by the Mississippi State Department of Health. You could also be FDA or USDA inspected with assistance from the Mississippi State Department of Health or the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. For today, we'll be focusing on cottage food labels with some examples. While cottage food is not directly regulated, it is overseen by the Mississippi State Department of Health. For a quick review, I want to go over the cottage food definition. It is important to keep in mind that not all food products can be sold as cottage food. These food products, cottage food products, must be non-potentially hazardous foods that do not require time and/or temperature control for safety. That means if your product must be kept refrigerated or hot or frozen, it is not considered a cottage food. These products, cottage food products, must be kept safely at room temperature. On this slide, we'll discuss what cottage food products are allowed. As you can see, there is a theme here with the types of products. They're all really dry products, such as candy, dried pasta, dried spices, dry baking mixes, granola, cereal, and trail mixes, dry rubs, fruit pies, nut mixes, popcorn, vinegar and mustard, and waffle cones. To continue with allowed products, you can sell baked goods without cream, custard, or meat fillings. These can include breads, biscuits, cookies, pastries, and tortillas. Chocolate-covered non-perishable foods are also allowed, including pretzels, nuts, fruit, except for melons, dried fruit, except for melons. Jams, jellies, and preserves have specific regulatory standard of identity that must be made in order to sell jams, jellies, and preserves. You can actually review the Code of Federal Regulations and what is required to be a jams, jelly, or preserve. Further, acidified products also must meet the standard definition to be sold as a cottage food product, and you can reference that in the Code of Federal Regulations as well. These specific items are not allowed as cottage food products. While you may see them at the farmer's market, they may fall under different regulatory guidance, food safety parameters, and licensure to be able to sell at farmers markets. But these items are not considered cottage foods. Items such as meat, fish, and poultry, dairy products, including custard pies, eggs. However, you can sell as a cottage food air-dried, hard shell, cooked eggs with intact shell. Cooked vegetables are not considered a cottage food product. Raw seed sprouts, sliced melons, garlic and other fresh herbs and oil, cooked potatoes, cooked legumes, cooked beans, nut butters such as peanut butter or almond butter, fruit and vegetable juices, cooked rice, low acid canned foods, these include vegetables, meats, and seafood, and others with a pH greater than 4.6. So if you have to get out your pressure canner, it is not considered a cottage food. Smoked fish, pasteurized and pre-cooked foods. There are specific requirements for components of a label for a cottage food product. These 7 components are required by law to be on a cottage food product. The name and address of the cottage food operation. The name of the cottage food product. The ingredients of the cottage food product in descending order of predominance of weight. Allergen information as specified by federal labeling requirements, the net weight or volume of the cottage food product. If any nutritional claim is made, appropriate nutritional information as specified by federal labeling requirements. And lastly, the following statement printed in at least a 10-point type in a color that provides a clear contrast to the background of the label. Made in a cottage food operation that is not subject to Mississippi's food safety regulations. On the next few slides, we're going to break down each component required of a cottage food label. So for component 1, the name and address of the cottage food operation is required. Some requirements and tips. This must be your home address because that is the location in which you are making the cottage food product. So here are some examples. Chris Confections, 555 Barnes Crossing Road, Tupelo, Mississippi, 38801. You can also put your full name and your home address if that is what you prefer. So for component 2 of the cottage food label, the name of the cottage food product. This name needs to clearly identify and describe what the product is. Piece of advice, just keep it simple. So for our examples, we have Grandma's Jelly, Grandma's Pie. If you were a customer or consumer, you would not know the specifics of that pie or that jelly by labeling it Grandma's. So if you look to the additional example in green, Grandma's Strawberry Jelly, Grandma's Apple Pie gives a very clear identification and description of what the cottage food product is. Again, clearly identify what the product is, not time to be too creative with names on cottage food products. So for component 3, we're going to be talking about ingredient order. The ingredients of a cottage food product are listed in descending order of predominance by weight. So what does that mean? The ingredient that's used the most by weight is listed first in the ingredient statement, followed by the ingredient that's used the next most in descending order. So the ingredient that's listed last is the one that you use the least in your formulation or your recipe. We highly encourage and recommend buying a scale because it keeps your product consistent as well as holds you accountable for your product formulation. Further, on your ingredient label, you need to recognize the sub-ingredients that are also in the ingredients of the products you're using to make your cottage food product. This is also a wonderful time to look for allergens. On the next slide, we'll give some examples. So I'm going to be using a jelly recipe as an example. I pulled the jelly recipe, a strawberry jelly recipe, from the National Center for Home Food Preservation. If you are doing any sort of preserves, jams, jellies, acidified products as cottage food, we highly recommend using the National Center for Home Food Preservation as a resource to ensure safety of your products. So with our strawberry jelly, for an example, we have 3½ cups of strawberry juice, which is about 3-quart boxes of berries, 1 package of powdered pectin, and 4½ cups of sugar. Here I've pulled some pictures of the strawberries, some Sure gel, which would be the powdered pectin, as well as sugar. Using a larger picture, you can see that in the strawberries, it's strictly strawberries as the ingredient. For the sugar, it's just sugar as the ingredient. However, with Sure gel, not only do we have an ingredient, we also have sub-ingredients. These sub-ingredients include dextrose, citric acid, which is cis gel, and a fruit pectin. So these sub-ingredients must be incorporated into your ingredient statement. Here I have listed the ingredients as the recipe calls for it in order. So I have strawberry juice, the packaged powdered pectin, and the sugar. Notice that I also have weight here. Again, a scale would be very helpful in determining weight, but you can also use online conversion of ingredients to a metric form. I've also listed the ingredients to help me when I make my ingredient statement. On this slide, I have reordered the ingredients in descending order of predominance by weight. So here you can see the strawberry juice weighs the most, followed by the sugar, and then lastly the powdered pectin. So in my ingredient statement, as presented, I list strawberries first in descending order of predominance of weight. That is the ingredient I use the most in this recipe, followed by sugar, and then fruit pectin. And here I have had to recognize and include the sub-ingredients of the fruit pectin in my ingredient statement on my label. For component 4 of a cottage food label, allergen information must be declared as specified by federal labeling requirements. The United States recognizes 8 allergens. You must identify if any of your ingredients are made from one of these food groups. For allergen labeling, there are 2 options. First option, include the allergen in the ingredient list. Or you can include an allergen statement using contains after the ingredient list. Using a white bread example, option 1 includes ingredients: whole wheat flour, water, sodium caseinate, which is a milk derivative, salt, yeast. With option 2, you can say whole wheat flour, water, sodium caseinate, salt, yeast, contains wheat and milk. You may often see a combination of these 2 labels, and that is okay too. So you may be asking yourself now, what are the big 8 allergens? The United States recognizes 8 allergens, including peanuts, wheat, eggs, soy, tree nuts, milk, shellfish, and fish. It's important to keep in mind that tree nuts, shellfish, and fish, you must specify the type of product because not everyone is allergic to pecans. Or I may be allergic to walnuts, but I can eat pecans. So you must specify the type of tree nut, fish, or shellfish because not everyone is allergic to the same type. Allergens can hide in several different types of products, which is why it's so important to review your ingredient labels that you're using for your product to ensure that there are no hidden allergens or allergens that you wouldn't necessarily think would be in the food product. For cow's milk, baked goods, instant soups, seasonings, chocolate, and margarine generally have a milk allergen. With eggs, baked goods, mayonnaise, some pasta, salad dressings. With fish, processed foods, pizzas, toppings, garnishes, sauces, and soups may have a fish allergen. Shellfish, similar with instant foods, pizzas, garnishes, sauces, and salad dressings. Tree nuts and peanuts, sometimes this is cross-contamination, especially in confectionery if you're using any sort of like granola or M&Ms, they might have some kind of cross-contamination where they can't ensure the allergen is free. Wheat can be found in baked goods and dairy products like custard powder, to jams, spreads, and beverages. Soy can be found in several different types of food products, chocolate, but it's also used in emulsifiers or texturizer. I also want to bring a point to say if you're using PAM or pan release, generally soy lecithin is an ingredient and your label should recognize PAM or pan release in your label. For component 5 of a cottage food label, you are required to list the net weight or volume of the cottage food product. Some requirements and tips state in both U.S. customary measure and metric units. Confused? Look at a competitor's product for order. I really encourage looking down the grocery store aisles for similar products. That way it might help you with labeling your products more accurately, as well as getting ideas of what the order should be. So over here, we have our strawberry jelly example again. I use Bon Maman. The example is 13 ounces, 370 grams. So the U.S. customary measure is 13 ounces, followed by metric, which is 370 grams. If you need consistency and confidence in how much your product weighs or the volume amount, measure 3 products and take the average for the net weight or net volume, not including the packaging. So here are just some other examples of order and net weight or volume examples of cottage food products that might be found already in the marketplace. Now keep in mind your weight will be very specific to your product, so don't copy these weights, but it does give an idea of what and how you need to list on your cottage food product. So for example, cookies require ounces and grams, apple pie ounces and grams, vinegar fluid ounces and quart with milliliters, mustard fluid ounces or milliliters. So for component 6, if a cottage food product makes any nutritional claim, appropriate nutritional information as specified by federal labeling requirements need to accompany your cottage food product. These can include health claims, which can be authorized, authoritative, or qualified. Generally, these are based on thorough scientific research, documentation, and evidence to support these types of claims. At this point in the food business with cottage food operations, we do not advise that products operations pursue any sort of health claim status on their cottage food product. However, if you do choose to go that route, you have to prove that your product actually meets that FDA definition. You've met that scientific agreement, and you have to have nutrition facts labeling. The same applies for nutrient content claims or structure function claims of a product. So if you make any nutritional claim, again, appropriate nutritional information as specified by federal labeling requirements is required on your cottage food product. So if you say low sugar, sugar-free, low sodium, fat-free, you have to document by nutrition facts that your product actually meets that definition. And with labeling requirements, you do have specific definitions to meet to use those claims on your cottage food product. Same thing with structure function claims. There's a specific list of structure function claims. At this point, we do not recommend pursuing this unless you are willing to do the extra verification to prove that your cottage food product does meet these definitions, as well as putting a nutrition facts label on your cottage food product. I did want to quickly mention product claims. So claims such as organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, and natural do actually have specific definitions that have to be met. So you would have to prove or document that you are in fact meeting these product claims. Oftentimes too, you might have to have a third-party certification to ensure or prove that your product is in fact gluten-free. Again, at this point in the food business as a cottage food operation, it's not really well advised to pursue this because some of these certifications can be quite costly. And the burden of proof is on the operator. If you are interested or need nutritional analysis or nutrition fact statement development, there are 3 ways that you can do this. You can send a product in for nutritional analysis by laboratory analysis. You can use the USDA nutritional database. You can develop a nutrition fact statement on your own using supplier information, the USDA database, and the requirements of the FDA food labeling guide. FDA requires nutritional facts to be reasonable and close to expectations, which provides some opportunity for average values. There are also nutrition facts label websites. We can provide a list of websites that we recommend. If you prefer benchtop analysis, we can also provide a list, but keep in mind that benchtop analysis is generally more expensive. And finally, for component 7, the following statement printed in at least a 10-point type in a color that provides a clear contrast to the background of the label. Made in a cottage food operation that is not subject to Mississippi's food safety regulations. So to review using our strawberry jelly example, we have the name and address of the cottage food operation, which would be Chris Confections, 555 Barnes Crossing Road, Tupelo, Mississippi, 38801. The name of the cottage food product, which would be Grandma's Strawberry Jelly. The ingredients of the cottage food product in descending order of predominance of weight. This would be ingredients, strawberries, sugar, fruit pectin, including the sub-ingredients, dextrose, citric acid, which is cis gel, and fruit pectin. Allergen information as specified by federal labeling requirements. In this example of strawberry jelly, we do not have any allergens present in the major ingredients or the sub-ingredients. The net weight or net volume of the cottage food product. The net weight would be 13 ounces, 370 grams. If any nutritional claim is made, appropriate nutritional information as specified by federal labeling requirements. I did not make any nutritional claims, therefore I do not need a nutrition fact statement or any other labeling requirements related to nutrition facts. And then lastly, our statement. The following statement printed in at least a 10-point type in a color that provides a clear contrast to the background of the label. Made in a cottage food operation that is not subject to Mississippi's food safety regulations. Using an additional example of chocolate chip cookies with walnuts that have allergens present, we would need the name and address, so Dory Fisher, address, city, state, zip, followed by the food product name, chocolate chip cookies with walnuts, very detailed descriptive food product name, ingredients as listed in descending order predominance of weight. This would include enriched flour as a major ingredient, followed by enriched flour subingredients, wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, and folic acid, followed by the next most used major ingredient, which would be butter, with butter subingredients being milk and salt, chocolate chips, sugar, chocolate liqueur, cocoa butter, butter fat, which would be a milk derivative, and soy lecithin, walnuts, sugar, eggs, salt, artificial vanilla extract, and baking soda. Here we have several allergens, and we're going to use the contains statement as an example. So contains wheat, milk, soy, walnuts, and eggs. Generally, these are also listed in the order in which they are found in the ingredient statement. So wheat was listed first in the ingredient statement, then milk, soy, walnuts, and eggs. The net weight or volume, we're going to use net weight, 3 ounces, 85 grams. And then lastly, that required statement for Mississippi Cottage Food operations. Made in a cottage food product operation that is not subject to Mississippi's food safety regulations. If you have any questions about cottage food labeling or questions about appropriate cottage food products or anything related to food, you're welcome to contact Mississippi State University Extension. My information, Dr. Courtney Christ, is available. You're welcome to email me or call. There are also several other food safety extension specialists that are willing to help depending on your location in the state. I would also like to recognize our sponsors and who's supporting this educational opportunity. The United States Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Southern Extension Risk Management Education Center.